Okay, welcome everybody to this kind of tutorial on the text of the month. So this is like a new thing that will happening in KVP and Khyentse Vision project, where we are discussing like a recently translated text. And the aim is also that it's not like only input, but that there's always plenty of room to discuss and have like a workshop feeling as well, And since Dzigar Kongtrul Rinpoche, like 2 weeks ago, taught on Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo's Heart Sutra commentary entitled The Light of Definite Meaning, a lamp that illuminates the profound perfection of wisdom. This will be our text today, this commentary and the Heart Sutra itself. And yeah, we are very honored and happy that the one and only Christian Bernard is here with us, who is the translator of that commentary by Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo. So Christian and I, we will present like, a few topics. Maybe I just tell them, Christian will start soon to talk a little bit about the origin of this text, like the background, a little bit biographical notes of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo. Then he will talk about the disadvantages of having a wrong understanding of emptiness. Then I will talk a little bit about the advantages of having a correct understanding of emptiness. And also I will try to summarize the Heart Sutra in a few minutes, like the little bit the structural outline and the main contents. Then Christian again will talk a little bit about the yogas related to the Heart Sutra. Then I will talk a little bit about different types of ultimate truth, or maybe there are no different types, maybe there's only one. Let's see. And then Christian will conclude by talking about the difference between absolute negation and what it means to be beyond elaborations. So there are like different small inputs we want to give, but then in between there's always space also for Q&A. So please use that. And ideally, it would be nice if you just like show your virtual hand, that you want to discuss, and then that we can really discuss, like with each other. So that is always nicer than just writing a question in the chat. But of course, if you prefer to write in the chat and ask a question there, that is also possible. Okay, then maybe let's start with this event. I will recite some prayers and share them first. And so we are off to a good start like that. In the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, I took refuge until I attain enlightenment. Through the merit of practicing generosity and the rest, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. In the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, I took refuge until I attain enlightenment. Through the merit of practicing generosity and the rest, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. In the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, I take refuge until I attain enlightenment. Through the merit of practicing generosity and the rest, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. Guru of the deepest kindness, embodying all sources of refuge, with unwavering and fervent longing, I supplicate you. In this life, the next, and the states between, look upon me with compassion and bless me that both thought and deed fall in harmony with the Dharma. Beyond words, beyond thought, beyond description, Prajñāpāramitā, unborn, unceasing, the very essence of space, yet it can be experienced as the wisdom of our own Rigpa. Homage to the mother of the Buddhas of past, present, and future. Okay, dear Christian, over to you.
Already? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought you said you're going to say something more, but apparently not. Yeah, hi, everyone. I'm very happy and honored to be conducting this session with Arne. So I've translated this commentary on the Heart Sutra, with the help of many people. So I want to mention that also as well. Sunam Gyatso, who is our one of our Himalayan scholars, was of great help, and Sean Price as well, and Khenpo Dorje, and then of course the editors Albion Butters, and then everybody else who was also participating in this project. So that's, I think, very important that we always remember how much of a team effort each of these translations are for Khyentse Vision. Yeah, I have something to share, actually, some slides. Can I share? Yes, I can share. But before I do that, I want to mention one disclaimer. Probably I don't even have to mention it, but for my own sake, I want to mention it, that anything, and I don't want to speak for Arne, so I'm just going to speak for myself. Anything that I will mention here, talk about, you have to take, maybe not with some grains of salt, but with a kilo of salt, because obviously there's a lot of, important ground of miscommunication when we talk about this extremely important and profound subject of emptiness. So just for you to know that I'm probably going to misrepresent a lot when I speak about this. And this is mainly for us, first of all, to get, an entry into the text of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, and then to use this as maybe hopefully an inspiration to examine further, to study further, to go deeper into Khyentse Wangpo's commentary and other commentaries, so that we really deepen our understanding of this. So I cannot claim that, I have understood this very well, but of course I don't have any intention to deceive any of you here. So I'll try my best to do what I can. Okay, so having said that, okay, where's now I have my glasses issues. Okay, I have to find. Is that okay?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's see. All right. So first, I wanted to speak a little bit about Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo and his commentary. Of course, we don't have much time, so I will not be able to talk much about his life. But one, I think, very important, very interesting aspect of this commentary is that he composed it when he was just 17 years old, which is, of course, very young in general to have this kind of, expertise and eloquence. And also, if you look into what he covers in that commentary, and then when you also consider what he says in the colophon, he said that he didn't even look at any other commentaries when he wrote this text. So that's pretty amazing. So of course we all probably, I'm sure you are, since you are here, you are probably familiar with the name of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo and his importance for Tibetan Buddhism. Buddhism in general, of course, but Buddhism as it is transmitted nowadays through the Tibetan masters in all traditions. And of course, such an important, such a grand personality does not come from nothing. And you can see here that from his early childhood, he was already blessed with a lot of very special signs of accomplishment. He had visions from a very young age of Guru Rinpoche, of Manjushri Mitra, who is actually also recognized as one of his previous lives, one great Dzogchen master. And he started, as many masters, his training at a very young age, and he was extremely proficient and eloquent, and mastered many fields of knowledge very, very early. At the age of 10, he entered Dzongsa Monastery. So, of course, you're all familiar with the name Dzongsa. And that monastery is a very, very old monastery. It was established as a Buddhist monastery at the time of Chogyal Pakpa, who was one of the founding masters of the Sakya tradition. And probably it was a Bömpo temple before that. So the site is probably very important in itself, but from the, what is that, the 12th century, I think 12th, 13th century, it was an important seat for the Sakya tradition in Eastern Tibet. And it was associated with the Ngor tradition. Ngor is one of the three main lineages or traditions within the Sakya school. So this strong link was very important for him because his first tutors were from that tradition. And in fact, he was recognized by one of these lamas as the rebirth of this lama's own uncle, who was a great Ngor Khenpo, Ngor Khenchen. And so he had his early training there. And then one interesting episode in his life, at the age of 14, he fell severely ill, and so much so that he lost his memory. He had to retrain everything. And he himself said that after he had recovered, his knowledge was only, I don't remember, even either a third or a fourth of all the knowledge he had already mastered before that age of 14. And this episode is interesting because it is a theme that is recurrent also with other great masters, such as Sachen Kunga Ningpo, who was one of the great masters of the Sakya tradition, who also had an episode where he fell ill. He had a complete loss of memory, and then through his practice, then he regained memory and then attained great realization, and his activities flourished after that. So in the biography of Khyentse Wangpo, you have, which was composed by Jamyang Khyentse, you have two times this mention that from a very young age he had visions of Manjushri Mitra, this great Dzogchen master. So it says from the age of 8 he had already visions, but then at the age of 16 there was another important episode of one of these visions which greatly developed his wisdom. There's one episode when he was 8 years old. He was sitting somewhere under a shelter, and then he heard a very loud sound, D, which is the seed syllable of Manjushri, so maybe like a thunderclap or something, and it made him kind of go unconscious. And then within this semi-unconscious state, or whatever it was, then he had these some visions of Manjushri Mitra, maybe for the first time. I'm not sure. And so then again, when he was 16, he had other visions of Manjushri Mitra that then again developed his wisdom. And the year after that is when he composed this commentary on the Heart Sutra. So when he was just 17 years old. And he doesn't, in the biography, we don't see any direct correlations, but I found it interesting that it came just 1 year after he had this important vision of Manjushri Mitra, yeah. And that this commentary on the Heart Sutra contains a lot of language that puts it very close, or that associates this commentary to the Dzogchen tradition. And Manjushri Mitra was this great Dzogchen yogi and Dzogchen master. So I found this correlation interesting. I also wanted to say that anyone who hasn't watched the teachings by Dzigar Kongtrul Rinpoche on this text, I warmly encourage you to watch them, because Rinpoche goes really very vast and very deep, and also kind of, hints a few times at this connection between this commentary on the Heart Sutra and the Dzogchen world, the Dzogchen terminology, which I won't be able to go into at all, but if you're interested in that, it's really very, very worthwhile to watch this Kongtrul Rinpoche's teachings a few times, because he does mention that, and he goes sometimes explicitly, sometimes less explicitly, goes into some of these terms from the Dzogchen tradition. Okay, so that's what I wanted to say about, is it still me, Arne? Am I still
Yes, dear.
allowed? Okay.
You still have the mic.
I still have the mic. Okay, so before we go into this, I wanted to mention, I think, something very, very important about the potential dangers when we deal with the subject of emptiness. And this comes from a teaching by Khyentse Rinpoche, who was also one of an important teacher of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo. And I can tell a little story. It might be interesting, I think. So Khyentse Rinpoche taught a commentary on a mind training text, and the last day was the day when he was giving more detailed explanations on the view of emptiness. And he noticed there were maybe 400 or 500 people in the audience, but he noticed that there were a few people who just arrived for the last day. I don't know where they came from. Not Nepali or Tibetan. They were Westerners, and they just maybe heard about these teachings in the last minute, so they joined. And Khyentse Rinpoche talked to the organizers, and he said he's not. He won't be able to teach the subject of emptiness in more depth if these participants join now who haven't received the preliminary teachings as a foundation for his explanations. So he said you can choose, either you let everyone in and then I'm going to give some very maybe introductory explanations, or you'll have to ask them to join next time so that he can go deeper into the subject. So just as a reminder, I think how much respect and how much reverence there is for this extremely profound subject. And the reason is, and that's what Khyentse Rinpoche explained in his talk, there are two important dangers when teaching emptiness, or when talking about emptiness. So one is that the audience will misunderstand the subject and think this is complete nonsense. You say no this, no that, and so on and so forth. And obviously there is this and there is that. So this doesn't make any sense. So if the teacher is not able to correct the understanding, it can become a condition for the student to think that since this teaching, which is so important, is nonsense, the rest of the Buddha Dharma is also really nonsense. And then it might create a real obstacle for potential students to enter the path. They're going to just throw the, what's the saying, the baby with the water or something like that, right? So they're going to just disregard the whole path out of a simple misunderstanding of that doctrine. So that's one important danger. And the second one is, of course, the view of nihilism, because there's so much negation going on, as we will see in the Heart Sutra. So then you think, okay, so since everything, there's nothing, then, karma is not really, doesn't have any bearing. It really doesn't matter what I do, so I can do what I want. And of course, this is very dangerous, because if we think in that way, we are creating more obstacles for our own path. Even if we don't dismiss the path, we still think it makes sense, but we emphasize on this view and kind of misinterpret the relative truth of cause and effect by labeling it emptiness, and then it doesn't matter what I do. And then, of course, our actions will still continue to have their consequences. Everything we do, say, and think will shape our experience. And so we create major obstacles for our own path by this misunderstanding. And so for this, it's very important first to remember that the Buddha didn't just teach emptiness, he taught the two truths. And one being conventional truth, relative truth of appearances, of cause and effect. And that this relative truth of cause and effect and the ultimate truth of emptiness, they are not to be separated. So there's teachings, I don't know if Arne will go into this, maybe not, I don't think we have time, but there's these logical unwanted consequences if you think that the two truths are the same, or if you think that they are different. What we, I think, can remember is that they are integrated. There's what is called the union of the two truths, and this is referred to as the ground middle way, or the ground Madhyamaka, that view. So never to neglect the effectiveness of cause and effect on the conventional level of our experience. So that, I think, is very important to remember. And I think, is that it? That's it for now.
Okay.
Or maybe,
yeah.
Do we pause in between, or do we just open at the end?
Maybe I just explain a little bit the benefits of correctly understanding emptiness, and then maybe we can have the first discussion. Okay, thank you, Christian. So now, yeah, our next topic is the benefits of understanding emptiness correctly. So Christian, I thought this could be good to start with that in the beginning. You know, like the Bodhisattva is also starting with the benefits of bodhicitta, so that we have interest and get enthusiastic about it, you know, and then the bodhicitta is explained. So we thought, let's do this similar way, you know. So the Heart Sutra itself is mentioning the benefits in like 2 lines. One line is saying, since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. So it means if we study, reflect, meditate, and embody the Heart Sutra, then that enables us to remove all kinds of obscurations that we have, you know, all kinds of delusions. May they be afflictive obscurations or cognitive obscurations. And so we see things clearly. We see the truth, how it is, like the union of these 2 truths that Christian just mentioned. And that is also liberating us from any possible fear, you know, so that fearlessness is always a big part of the Mahayana journey. And classically, we could say, that there are like these 4 maras you might have heard about, you know, like clinging to permanence or skandhas or emotions or the self, and that we are, that we are free of these fears. And then, of course, we are also free of any hope, you know, because these 2 go together. And we are also not afraid anymore to help sentient beings, you know, even if it means like coming back again and again in samsara, you know, appearing in samsara like for 1,000,000 times to help infinite sentient beings, you know, that fear is also gone, because our mind is like a vajra mind, you know, it cannot be disturbed anymore, you know, it cannot be distracted, we cannot really suffer anymore. But yeah, we are sort of protected from that thanks to our fearlessness. And therefore, we happily, compassionately come back in samsara to help others. And it's not anymore a rebirth that is driven by karma or negative emotions. The other sentence in the Heart Sutra about the benefit of realizing emptiness is, it says, they, the Buddhas, transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. So all wrong views, all dualistic views, all extreme views that Christian just mentioned, you know, all of them are transcended, you know, if we have a correct understanding and realization of emptiness. And then we are attaining complete nirvana. So this complete nirvana is Buddhahood, you know. So this is something that is beyond samsara and beyond nirvana, because of removing all the obscurations, and through the total manifestation of wisdom, we are liberated from samsara. But then, thanks to the compassion, the loving kindness with everyone, we are also beyond nirvana. So therefore, that is what we achieve, Buddhahood, or the complete nirvana. And in the Bodhisattva, in the wisdom chapter, there are also like there are a couple of verses at the end of the wisdom chapter that also explain the benefits of realizing emptiness or developing the wisdom. And so Shantideva is saying it is the benefit for us, which means that we are free of the 8 worldly dharmas, which are basically hope and fear. So that is what liberates us. And then on the other hand, we will have unconditioned compassion, because there is no like selfish agenda anymore in our compassion. There is no, there are no reference points. So therefore, yeah, we can have this open heart and that benevolence for each and everyone always. These are like the main benefits. And of course, philosophically, as I said already, and based on what Christian said, like we are really getting rid of all extreme views, eternalism, nihilism, or adding anything to reality or subtracting anything, solidifying anything or negating anything. We are free of all that. But also we are not, especially we are not adding something like true existence to things, but we know, things just appear on the conventional level because of cause and conditions, like a rainbow, like a mirage. Yeah, it's there, but on the other hand, it's also not there. So that is then really removing all our aversions and attachments. And I think that's maybe it about the benefits. So now up to you guys. Do you want to discuss anything? If so, please raise your virtual hand or your real hand, and then we will try our best to answer. Okay, if not yet, then I will continue with trying to summarize the Heart Sutra a little bit. There are a couple of outlines how to understand the Heart Sutra. And I made a very simplified one. And here it is. So we have maybe okay. So we have of course the title first, Bhagavati Prajñāpāramitā Dhyāna Sutra. We could translate this as the Blessed Mother, the heart of the transcendent perfection of wisdom. And mother is always referred to the wisdom or the Prajñāpāramitā, because thanks to wisdom, all Buddhas are born. And this is also referring also more to the nature of mind, or the union, of the ground, of what Christian mentioned, of the conventional truth and the absolute truth, or of wisdom and skillful means, And when we talk about Prajñāpāramitā, this is like an important term, and always maybe have the following in mind, it could be referring to the sort of subject, the wisdom mind or the cognizer. And it can also refer to the object, what is cognized through that wisdom. So the emptiness, dhamma dhatu, selflessness, nature of things. On the other hand, it can also refer to the scriptures, the Prajñāpāramitā scriptures. It could also refer to the path. So the path Prajñāpāramitā is basically the practice of the 6 paramitas. And it can also refer to the actual result, the actual Prajñāpāramitā, which is this omniscient non-dual wisdom of the Buddhas. Okay, then the text itself. So it starts with an opening discussion. And so I will not read through it to save time, but basically the setting is explained, And this is usually done in these 5 perfections, which are mentioned here, the perfect teaching, the perfect time, the perfect teacher, the perfect place, the perfect retinue, So thus, this Heart Sutra, I, Ananda or Manjushri or Vajrapani, depending on how you interpret it, have heard, not made up, but Buddha has said that. And this, and these 5 perfections are explained here just to show the setting of where this happens, Of course, some commentators also say, like this Rajgriha at Vajrapip Mountain, that this is actually, our own awareness. So it's happening there. You can always try to also understand it on a inner level, Then, what is the point of origin or the origination of this teaching? And that is maybe an important point. It's basically it's about the silence of the Buddha, in this Heart Sutra, because he is not saying much, So, but what is he doing? He's like entering, but of course that is just more like a show. But he's entering in a samadhi, which is called profound illumination. So, and that is the cause, of what is happening in this Heart Sutra, This is the cause for Shariputra's curiosity about the Mahayana path, which is a little bit surprising, actually. And it's also the cause for Avalokiteshvara entering the same samadhi as Buddha and then teaching that path, having that confidence to teach all that. So that is triggered by this samadhi of profound illumination. So that is really the cause. Therefore, this Heart Sutra is also qualified to be called sutra, because usually sutras are teachings by the Buddha, right? But teachings that are blessed by the Buddha, like through this samadhi, they are equally also accepted to be teachings by the Buddha. Maybe that's a good point to mention briefly, because it's very obvious in this text that there are like 3 types of words of the Buddha, like direct words of the Buddha, which will come later at the end of the Heart Sutra, where he is like affirming what was said, this is like a direct word spoken by him. Another word by the Buddha is through his blessing. So this is, for example, Avalokiteshvara's answer. And then another word of the Buddha is through his permission, so he permitted Ananda to write these settings, in the sutra, So these 3 are understood to be, all words of the Buddha, because they are either spoken directly or thanks to his blessing or thanks to his permission. Anyway, then through the power of the Buddha or Buddha's samadhi, Shariputra got curious and asked, basically, what is the Bodhisattva path about? How do we practice it? How do we travel through the 5 paths? How do we attain enlightenment? And then Avalokiteshvara is answering that with this, basically, seeing the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. So that is really like a key sentence here, and that is sort of the essence. So we need to see directly how it is. We should see correctly without personal agendas, and we should see repeatedly without any interruptions. And that is all the teaching then that is following. And also the Heart Sutra or any Prajñāpāramitā text, it's like always obviously talking about emptiness, but then hiddenly or secretly, it is talking about the 5 paths. So that is basically here, when we look into that, it is the first path, the path of accumulation, and the path of preparation that is mentioned here. And then the main focus is emptiness. So there will be this 4 important parts that we know form is emptiness, emptiness also is form, emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. So that is, we will come back to that. And then all dharmas are emptiness is another pointing out here where Avalokiteshvara is introducing the path of seeing. Emptiness, of course, doesn't mean nothingness, as Christian has said, and we will come back to that, but it means also fullness and the ability to practice the 6 parameters and compassion. Then the characteristiclessness will be explained here from here onwards. And also the so-called wishlessness, you know, that there's nothing really to wish for because everything is by nature perfect and complete. Then Shariputra is mentioning all, Avalokiteshvara is mentioning all these no, 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 all these negations. And this is then on the 4th path, the path of meditation, where we are familiarizing ourselves with emptiness and even the emptiness of the Four Noble Truth, and cultivate the wisdom. Then on the final moment of the 4th path, you know, this Vajra-like samadhi, then the Bodhisattvas realize the Prajñāpāramitā and then attain that result that I mentioned earlier, no obscurations, no fear, but complete nirvana. That is then the Buddhahood. And this is the path basically of all Buddhas of the 3 times. And this can be also summarized just as the mantra, you know. Even here in this explanation, you know, there are like 5 different criteria how to understand the mantra, and they all explain the 5 different paths. And the mantra, which is of course like a word or language or phrase, but it is actually just the expression of the wisdom mind, but the mantra itself is the wisdom. And this of course also has a very deep meaning related to wisdom and related to the 5 paths. And then finally the Buddha is speaking, and he is saying good to Shariputra, good to Avalokiteshvara, and is approving everything that Avalokiteshvara has said, and by that confirming, you know, and instilling certainty in the listeners, you know, that this is the truth. And then in the end, everybody, and there are like so many beings, you know, like humans, non-humans, and so on, rejoice. And that is then the conclusion. So that was like a 9 minutes attempt of what the Heart Sutra entails. And of course, one could talk, or there's so much, you know, like in it, of course. But now over to you. Do you have any things you want to discuss?
Maybe I can just add one point, is that for those of you who are interested in the Dzogchen terminology that is spicing up Khyentse Wangpo's commentary, it comes out in various places, but one place is the after he talks about this form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is form is not other than emptiness, emptiness is not other than form. After that, he mentions 8 different characteristics, like emptiness, no characteristics, no arising, no ceasing, and so on. And in this context, when you go to the link that Ina shared on the in Khyentse Wangpo's commentaries, in that context, there's a lot of this very spicy, juicy Dzogchen language, which Kongtrul Rinpoche pointed out.
Okay.
There is a hand.
Yes. Please.
Hi. Thank you for having this session and helping us to understand this text. the expression there, skandhas are empty of true nature. What does true nature, what is it referring to?
Shall I start, Christian, or do you want?
Yeah, I wonder if this is not actually going to be answered by what we're going to discuss anyway. So can I ask you to maybe just remember that question, and in case it's still there after our discussions, then ask again. I think it should be hopefully clarified a bit.
Yeah, let's make sure. Janine. Hi.
Yeah, I still have a little bit confusion about the place of the Heart Sutra and the Buddha not teaching on emptiness directly and teaching on emptiness here. And the context a little bit. Could you say a little bit more about that? Of the sutras, and then what is really the Buddha's word, and yeah.
Oh, so in the beginning it is said, right, that the teaching has happened on the Vajrapik mountain. So that is sort of just on the outer level. This is just the location. It's physically in India, not so far from Bodh Gaya. There Buddha went with his retinue up to the peak and then taught there. So that is sort of the setting. And then, of course, also in teachings of our great masters, then it's not only the human audience that is visible, but there's always so many other beings present at the same time. Yeah, and the time was, of course, after Buddha's enlightenment and so on. So that was like the setting. And then the other thing, which, yeah, I think you are asking what I try to explain is, you can wonder, why is that qualified as a sutra, even though Buddha is not really giving the answers, right? So the answer to that doubt is that there are like 3 types of words by the Buddha, and it's not only what he's directly saying, but also the words that come out of the mouths of others, like Avalokiteshvara or Shariputra, thanks to Buddha's blessing. So Buddha was in that samadhi, and that was blessing Avalokiteshvara and Shariputra to have that dialogue. And therefore, it is actually Buddha's wisdom speaking to them, let's say. And the third part of that Heart Sutra are all these, like, the story, basically, you know, when it says, okay, it was at Vajrapik mountain, there were these people, and then Shariputra asked that, and then Avalokiteshvara answered that, and later, oh, everybody was rejoicing. All these storylines, sort of, that is also the word of the Buddha, because he gave the permission to Ananda to write this in the sutras. So therefore, all these 3 parts, you know, his direct words, that was the first one, and that what was spoken by Avalokiteshvara and Shariputra, thanks to the blessing of the Buddha, are basically Buddha's words through them. And then what Ananda wrote down, like the storyline, that was also thanks to the permission of the Buddha. So therefore, it's qualifying as a sutra.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying my question, indeed. And then just one more following up question, that the Heart Sutra is not accepted by the lower tenates, right? Or so it means actually there's also sutras which are only from the Mahayana path. Is that correct?
Christian, you want to address that?
Yeah, there's many different views of what constitutes authentic Buddha Vachana, speech of the Buddha. And there's also in the, there's a text by Maitreya, actually, you know, the future Buddha, that addresses this question, because it was an important question. If you have a lot of texts floating around, or a lot of teachings, let's say, before they were written down, and then some people say, oh, this is authentic Buddha Dharma, and then say, oh, no, this is not really the Buddha's teaching. So then how do we decide hundreds of years later which one is authentic and which is not? And so there is this teaching by Maitreya called The Ornament of Mahayana Sutras. And very much at the beginning of this text, he addresses this question. And there's many reasons of which I don't remember most, but one of them, I think, more important ones is that I do remember, probably wrongly, maybe Anna, you can correct me, is that one of the whole purpose of the Buddha Dharma is to free the mind from mental afflictions. And so in one sense, you could say something that effectively removes ignorance from the mind, that has to come from a mind that is already free from ignorance, right? And that's ultimately the mind completely liberated from all forms of ignorance and obscurations. That's none other than Buddha mind. So in this sense, you know, that opens up the door to a lot, of course. I'm aware of that. But I think that's quite a valid point to qualify something as Buddha Dharma. And there's one, actually, now I remember one important refutation, actually, of some people who say, oh, all these perfection of wisdom sutras are not from the Buddha. Throughout the various canons, the various, you know, literary corpus, what is the plural of corpus? Corpuses.
Corpus.
There's lots of prophecies by the Buddha, you know, very like important things that will happen in the future related to the Buddha Dharma, the Buddha predicted. So if these perfection of wisdom sutras were all fake and they became so important, not only for a few people in India at the time, but even for us now today, the Buddha would have predicted there is going to be someone who comes up with fake sutras called perfection of wisdom. And then, of course, Nagarjuna and all of that. So he would have said, don't believe them. It's wrong. And there is no such prophecy. So that's one of the reasons I remember. I don't know where, but it's somewhere. One reasoning.
Thanks, both. That clarifies a lot.
And I put in the chat like the two different translations of the book that by Maitreya that Christian mentioned, you know, where in the beginning this discussion is happening. Bonjour, Isabelle. Oh, Christian.
Yeah, I wonder, because now it's, I mean, it's 50 minutes past the beginning. I don't know until when we have, but I wonder if now we should continue a little bit with the plan and then come back to questions so that we can can focus a little bit on the text itself. What do you think?
Christian, no, Isabelle and Laura, yeah, keep your questions in mind. And then I guess it will be over to you, Christian.
Or maybe unless the two questions have some direct relevance with what was just discussed. So if it clarifies.
Isabelle, yes.
Isabelle, okay.
She thinks she has a small question.
I think so, but you can judge. So thank you for giving me the floor or the mic. How I understand the Heart Sutra is that it is a practice, okay, for daily life. And that's how I try to apply it. The problem is I keep on getting stuck in form, okay? Form is emptiness, emptiness in form. And I'm really trying, but I keep on getting stuck in form. So I don't actually... How would it feel to really realize the form is emptiness, emptiness in form? And me as a family lawyer, I'm getting a lot of people with problems. So I'm getting a lot of form and also, of course, emptiness. But it's a constant struggle because I feel that although I understand the text philosophically, I cannot actualize it. And I don't know how, or if you have like some kind of tip. Maybe I'm not practicing enough. Maybe I'm practicing wrong. I don't know. It's very intellectually and philosophically right, but practically, you know, how to act to make realization like in the body quick. Do you need to meditate more? Do you need to do whatever more? I have no idea. It's frustrating. So I would appreciate your advice on this.
I don't think that's a small question. That's a huge question. And if,
Okay.
if we had the answer, we would be speaking like Dzigar Khyentse Rinpoche. But Arne, if you have anything, like some pith instructions.
I mean, form here in the sutra is, of course, like a dummy, right, for everything on the conventional level. So you can also apply to, yeah, thoughts, emotion, and all the other skandhas, of course. But since you're asking about form, I don't know, for me, practically, I always try to see everything like a dream or illusion, you know, that things appear, you know, with your clients and their problems, they do appear on the conventional level, and on that level, they are important. But then at the same time, I always try to remember, yeah, it's just like an illusion or dream. On a deeper level, it's not important at all, you know, it's not even there like that, you know. So I always try to have these two levels in mind. And yeah, the outcome of these two levels is, yeah, trying to see everything like an illusion or dream, you know, appearing but empty. And then, yeah, I try my best on the relative level, be, as Guru Rinpoche said, like, be as detailed and careful with every detail, but then I'm not getting sucked into that or too dogmatic, because I also know the bigger, vaster level, that on the ultimate level, nothing is important, you know.
Yes, and I get that, but I feel I cannot go deep enough with that.
Yeah, and then I think you gave your answer. Yeah, maybe just more meditation,
More, okay.
Yeah, because yeah, intellectual understanding is great, and we will come to that a little bit. But then, yeah, the long journey is from head to heart, you know, and that happens through contemplation and meditation. That we are really that, you know, and not only knowing it, but yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Just as a teaser, towards the end, I don't know if you've seen the commentary, Khyentse Wangpo's commentary. Towards the end, there is a section on the practice, actually.
Okay.
He first talks about basically how to integrate the view, and then he talks also how to practice with the text as a recitation practice. And we're going to talk about this towards the end of this session a little bit also.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But that's a huge question. That's that's the whole point, actually, of the whole thing. So I will speak a little bit on inspired by something that Dzigar Kongtrul Rinpoche mentioned in his explanations. And when he talked about the commentary of Khyentse Wangpo, he basically went through the whole text and then stopped and explained, and he gave a very long introduction, actually, that is super helpful. And when he reached that point, after talking about towards the beginning of the sutra, when Avalokiteshvara talks about form being empty, he talks about these four aspects. Form is empty, emptiness is form, and so on. And he said this passage, these four, sometimes called these four characteristics, in Khyentse Wangpo's commentary, it is called the four characteristics. These are really the crux of the matter. That's the most important part. This is really what we should try to integrate as much as we can, because this clarifies that view completely for us in that context. And so I'm going to read now from the commentary and then talk a little bit about it. All right. Are you on the same page?
The heart of the matter?
The heart of the matter.
That's all.
Okay, so I'm just going to read this. In this section, the phrase "form is empty," that's the quote from the sutra, indicates the experience of emptiness attained by no longer identifying form as having an inherent nature. So this is maybe the most important entrance point, actually, because usually we don't cling to emptiness a lot as ordinary beings. The ordinary conceptual mind clings to things as being real. That's the first extreme, and we're going to talk about the different extremes later. So this phrase basically breaks that kind of conceptual framework of clinging to things as real. Form is empty. Emptiness means here empty of inherent nature, empty of intrinsic existence, independent, something that is permanent, independent, and unitary in a sense. So there is many this now touches on something that also Dzigar Kongtrul Rinpoche mentioned quite a bit, on the reasonings that can be used to dismantle this clinging to things as being real or things as having inherent nature. Basically, the problem is that all our afflictive emotions, everything that makes the mind from, in a very subtle way, uneasy or uncomfortable, not completely at ease, up to the most extreme forms of rage and attachment and pride and jealousy, everything that makes the mind unpeaceful, comes from not recognizing this, the reality of things, not seeing that things lack inherent nature, basically clinging to things as being real and therefore a valid basis for all of our emotions, beginning with ourselves, beginning with what we identify as being I. And this is why the Heart Sutra talks about these 5 skandhas, because the 5 skandhas is or 5 aggregates, is what the Buddha identified as the basis for identity. We don't identify as something that is anywhere outside of this physical form or the mental things that happen, which means all our feelings, all our perceptions, all our mental formations, and the consciousness, which is seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and so on. So there's outside of mind and body, basically, we don't identify the I, the self, right? So then the exercise is here to, okay, look, analyze, where do I really find some inherently existing I within these different elements of body and mind? And I mean, to cut that reasoning short, it's not really findable, because anything you find is made up of many parts, made up of many constituents. So the physical form, obviously has many different parts. And each of those are also in constant change, in constant flux. There's nothing really firm or permanent to be identified within the form. And exactly the same on the mental level. All our feelings, all our perceptions, all our thoughts, all our emotions, and even the mind that is cognizing is always in motion. There's nothing static in that whole bunch of experience. So, and he begins with form, right? So he says form is empty, and that includes one's own form, which is the basis for labeling I, the self, but as well as all forms that we perceive. Anything that has shape, anything that has color, anything that is the object of any of our senses, all of that is devoid of inherent nature, which means that it depends on causes and conditions to arise, to form. And anything that depends on other things, on causes and conditions, by its very nature, by its very definition, doesn't have its own intrinsic nature, because it depends on other things. If it had its own intrinsic nature, we should be able to find it and identify it. So that's also the invitation, actually, to look and to investigate, not to just take these statements as truths, but take these statements as invitations to investigate and to analyze. So when form, and we can begin by our own physical body, when we cannot find any intrinsic, independent core essence to identify, as that is the essence, the independent, real, ultimate, unchanging essence of form, therefore it is empty of inherent nature. And when that clinging to inherent nature, to realities, to things as being as they appear, when that lets go, that is what is here. The experience of form is empty. So the mind can be focused on a form, can be focused on a pen, can be focused on the physical body, and then investigate. And when you don't find any inherent intrinsic identity there, then the clinging to that identity just stops, it lets go. And this is what is here, what here Khyentse Wangpo says, form is empty. That is the experience of emptiness attained by no longer identifying form as having an inherent nature. And then the second aspect is, since in terms of the experience, emptiness dawns as form, it states emptiness is form. So that's so important, because it does not mean that there is absolutely no experience anymore. So the very nature of this experience is emptiness, but the experience itself as this infinite number of appearances, of forms, and so on, is still arising. So there is no room for clinging to that as to a nihilistic view of emptiness, of nothingness. It's still, the form is still there. It's not, nobody's denying that these appearances happen. What is questioned is, what is the nature of these appearances? Things, what is the ultimate value of these appearances? And therefore, then, since form is empty and emptiness is not other than form, the path of the union of appearance and emptiness arises with the four characteristics. So again, these four characteristics are: form is empty, emptiness is form, form is not other than emptiness, emptiness is not other than form. So, and these, this basically summarizes this union of appearance and emptiness in a very skillful way, because he goes first from our experience. We have the experience of form. Then you look at form deeply and you see, okay, it does not have any inherent existence, any inherent nature. So then it's empty. However, there is still appearances of form. So emptiness is form. But these two, form is not other than emptiness and emptiness is not other than form. These two third and fourth phrases, they express the union of appearance and emptiness, or as it's called here, the non-duality of appearance and emptiness, or the yoga of union. So there's these three yogas: the yoga without appearances, which is you focus on the form and then you cannot find anything graspable. That's the yoga without appearances. And then with appearances means, despite that, appearances still happen. So emptiness is form. And then the last two is the non-duality of appearance and emptiness. And then he says, in this way, the nature of all phenomena is the mother Prajñāpāramitā, indescribable, because however way you put it, conceptually, it's never complete. It's always an incomplete, a conceptual image of what is the actual experience. Inconceivable, ineffable emptiness beyond arising, ceasing, and abiding. Yeah, so here I have a summary of these three yogas and the four statements. And I used this beautiful reflection of the moon in water because that's a very, very common analogy for emptiness, where you have an appearance of the moon, so it's clearly there, but it's empty in terms of there is no real moon there. You look for the moon in that reflection, but there is no real moon. We have to remember it's an analogy, right? It's not it's just an analogy, but it's a very beautiful one, right? So the form, the moon, is empty of being the moon. However, it still appears as the moon. And these two, appearance of the moon and not being the real moon, they are completely inseparable. That's the yoga of union. Yeah, I think I'm gonna stop here.
Thank you. I have the feeling this answered B's question a little bit, but still she wants to say something, right? B?
Okay. So when in this text say form is empty, it is saying form is empty of inherent existence. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if that is the case, why is it that Jamyang criticized Lama Tsongkhapa so much for saying that? When pot, the famous, debate, pot is empty of true existence, and Jamyang say, no, that's not correct. Pot is empty of pot. Yeah.
I think we will talk about this, right, Arne? A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit, yes. I was not going into that debate, but if you, Christian, want to address it.
Actually, I talked with Jose Cabezon about this. Jose Cabezon is a very great scholar who was trained as a Gelug monk in Serra, I think so. And he's a professor in, I don't remember where, somewhere in the States. And of course, that's the very big criticism, right? This, what does emptiness mean? Does it mean completely empty or just empty of of being a pot, basically.
But in that debate, as I recall, I don't know if I'm completely accurate, the criticism is that true existence is something that is outside of pot.
Yeah.
So to say, pot is empty of true existence, it doesn't do anything for us because it's something that's not in the pot. But the whole point, as this sutra is pointing out, is that we are holding on to something that is not in the pot. And we need to recognize that it is not there. It is by that recognition that, all the other good things happen. So
what Jose Cabezon said, that he thinks that this is a skillful means by Tsongkhapa to eliminate the first type of grasping, which is the grasping to true existence. But it's limited, that type of grasping, because, and now we get into, I think also into the approach of analytical meditation, because as long as there is a conceptual notion of what emptiness is, in terms of emptiness is just inherent existence of the pot, not pot, but inherent existence. So there is still clinging to the relative existence of the pot in that analytical meditation approach. And so this is something that is limiting the actual view of emptiness. The actual view of emptiness, and this we will come, I think, after Arne's next segment, is completely free of all elaboration, not just the elaboration of true existence. And that is something that cannot be achieved just by negating true existence.
So we are supposed to negate also the relative existence?
The ultimate kind of understanding, or let's not say understanding, the ultimate view is free from all kind of grasping, even to any kind of like relative truth, ultimate truth, all of that. I think this is something that Arne will address now. And that's important to reach ultimately.
Okay, I hope you address what it means exactly to grasping to relative existence. How is that different from grasping to true existence? Thank you.
I think in some sense it's
I'll let you guys go on.
Yeah. Let's go on, and then we'll debate later.
Okay, then I feel I shall go on. And Tara, I read your question. I will incorporate it in my part because it fits well in that. If it's not satisfactory, then after, please chat more. Okay, so the idea was to talk a little bit about now in the next 6, 7, 8 minutes about the ultimate truth. But maybe it makes sense also to go through all levels of truth, you know, the conventional truth and the ultimate truth as well, just to see the entire picture. And as a reminder, as Christian said in the very beginning, yeah, they're actually in union, you know, they're not really separable or divorceable, but yeah, like for our benefit or like out of pedagogical reasons, Buddha presented them as if they are different because it helps our understanding of things. But yeah, always remember that they are not actually separable. So that's why Khyentse Rinpoche sometimes says they could be talked about like truth in singular, but still two. Anyway, so let's go. So I made a chart that I want to show you, and let's go through the different possibilities of realities or truths. And I will show it one by one. So first of all, we could have what is called invalid conventional truth. These are basically non-existence, you know, like if you see a yellow snow mountain, even though it's yellow, or if you see like a mirage of a lake on the hot road, you know, when you're driving, or if you think there is a truly existent cell. So those things can be perceived by ordinary beings like myself. And what kind of cognition do I have when seeing that? It is some mistaken perception, you know, like I have an error, you know, maybe my eyes are faulty, or I have a wrong view, you know, and therefore think, oh, things are truly existent, you know. So there's a mistake happening. And later we will fill in this box for each of the following, you know. Is it conventional truth or ultimate truth? Then here we could also like include like the reflection of the moon that Christian just showed, you know, like because that moon reflection, you know, it's not really made out of stones, you know, so it's not the real moon. Then we have something that is called valid conventional truth. This is, yeah, if I see a white snow mountain as white, or if I see a real lake, real just on the level of conventional truth, you know, if I see the real moon in the sky. And that, who's perceiving that, that could be us also, ordinary sentient beings, without having this perceptual error, you know, if we have what is called a sensory direct valid cognition. So if our mind and sense faculties on a relative level are intact, healthy, then I see the moon in the sky, then I see the white snow as white. Now comes a little bit tricky one. This is called mere conventional truth. And this is what bodhisattvas on the bhumis, here that is the perceiver, perceive in post-meditation. You know, if they're in meditation, they're like totally, let's say, do emptiness meditation. But then once they go out of meditation, because of their habitual tendencies that are still there, you know, they still have appearances in post-meditation. It's a little bit like what we perceive as an ordinary being in a lucid dream, you know. We have total awareness that it's a dream, but still, because of our tendencies, there are still dream appearances happening within our dream. But we know that they are not true because we know it's a dream. So something like that. This is what Bhumi Bodhisattvas have in post-meditation. And in their case, it is a direct valid cognition again, but it's a yogic direct valid cognition. That's how it's called. Okay, then the next one. Now it's getting a little bit more tricky. So the next one is the nominal ultimate truth. They have different names, you know, you could, sometimes it's called approximate absolute, or what else, conceptual absolute, categorized absolute, those kind of terms. And so it is a correct conceptual understanding of a reasoning negating true existence. This is also what we can have, you know. So, you know, we have like it's called inferential valid cognition, which is a valid conceptual understanding of things, but yeah, it's using concepts. So that means, for example, the classic example is I see smoke on the other side of the mountain. I mean, I see, above the mountain, I see smoke above the mountain. And therefore, I inferentially, validly understand there must be fire behind that mountain. So I have a conceptual image in my mind, fire. It's correct, that's a good thing. It's a correct understanding. I'm not thinking, oh, there must be a broccoli or something. But I have a correct understanding, there must be fire. But still, it's a conceptual understanding, right? It is a mental image. So this is not really warming me in case I wanted to get warm, So it doesn't have the properties of fire, or I cannot do barbecue, So it's not usable, in the sense, but nevertheless, that conceptual understanding of fire will help. It gives me certainty that there will be fire. So therefore, I will walk. I will cross the mountain, and then definitely I will get the real fire, and then I can do my warming or my barbecue or sitting around the fire, and Christian is playing guitar or whatever. So, but it's a conceptual understanding. And Mipa Rinpoche is calling it also like it's like an important stepping stone, to then have the real, actual understanding of emptiness, to then really get to that fire. And that is sort of my answer to Tara Das. Yes, of course, chanting the Heart Sutra is great. And there's a blessing and all that, and it will do something to our minds. But still, even though it's only a conceptual understanding, it is helpful, to really also study the Heart Sutra so that we have a deeper understanding of what it really means, so that we have this nominal ultimate truth, that we have this proper inferential valid cognition that will give us certainty, and that we also really know what we are doing and what we are familiarizing ourselves with in meditation. Like, of course, like in sadhana practice in Vajrayana, we can just read it. It will have a benefit. But if we really understand the Vajrayana view and theory and principles behind it, it will make such a difference. Okay, so, but yeah, this inferential valid cognition, this correct conceptual understanding will already give an insight, like an aha moment, there's fire, there's emptiness, And yeah, it is based on the Madhyamika reasonings, and wrong views will be negated already, especially the clinging to true existence will be negated already. Maybe even the non-existence will be emphasized a lot, to make sure that we are not clinging to existence. So it is really useful, but it's not the real deal yet because it's conceptual. So therefore, it is dualistic. It is mistaken, sort of even. Yeah, maybe that I should not have said that, but from Pramana point of view, it's not the real deal. Let's just say that, And this is something what we can express, this understanding. It's a conceptual understanding, so we can use concepts like language, text, thoughts, symbols, to express it. But then the last one is the actual ultimate. So this also has like so many names. How would we call it? Uncategorized ultimate, non-conceptual ultimate. So this is then really free from any conceptual elaboration. And that is the real emptiness, the actual emptiness. And that is also, that's the Prajñāpāramitā, And this is directly, validly cognized by the yogis. So this is happening, of course, in the case of the Buddhas, but also in case of the Bhumi Bodhisattvas when they are in meditative equipoise. You know, then they're really like their subject Prajñāpāramitā, let's say, their wisdom, is in union with the object Prajñāpāramitā, the emptiness. So they are resting in that, directly seeing it. That means they're touching the fire, you know? So they have walked across the hill and then they are with the fire. They are getting warm, you know, or they're feeling the heat, you know? So that is non-conceptual. That is direct seeing, you know, direct wisdom. And that is basically not really expressible because it's beyond concepts and elaborations. Still, it is realizable by wisdom. As Shantideva said, it's not the domain of the relative mind because it's not conceptual. So it's realizable through wisdom. And of course, in Vajrayana, you know, we can have abhishekas or pointing out instructions so that how it can be transferred. But yeah, in Sutrayana, it's based on study, contemplation, meditation. This is still sort of my answer to Tarada's question. Okay, now let's do the filling in. What truths are they? So let's start from here. So this direct realization of emptiness, this is the one and only, okay, forget the colors, it doesn't matter. This is the only ultimate truth. Only this is ultimate truth. Yeah? The conceptual understanding of emptiness is actually conventional truth. It's because it's in the realm of the intellect, it's in the realm of relative. So it's actually the conventional truth. It's not ultimate. But it's still called ultimate because it's very much attuned or in harmony with the ultimate. But it's still the conceptual knowledge, let's say, what we have in the head, but not yet in the heart, you know? Then, Christian, did you raise your hand?
Yeah, can I just interject one thing for B related to B's question?
Yeah.
I think this addresses also. Can you leave your screen on?
Of course. I just wanted to see you properly.
Oh. So I think if I remember correctly, B's question was about what's the difference of clinging to conventional reality or clinging to ultimate reality in terms of conceptually grasping it. And I think one key difference is that this nominal ultimate truth, which is a conceptual grasping at let's say, emptiness or ultimate reality, is correct because it's in line with reality, but it's there's one phrasing, correct but incomplete or something like that. So it's correct because it's in line with reality. However, it's still correct but mistaken.
Yeah, that's what I meant earlier, mistaken, but it sounds strange, but it's the way to say it, yeah.
Right. So, and actually this is in Maitreya's Madhyanta Vibhaga, he talks about these distinctions of exactly what you are laying out here. So it's correct because it's in line with reality, and therefore it is extremely important and useful if it is used as a stepping stone.
Yes.
Towards the actual view, knowing that the view itself is free from all kinds of clinging. From one level, it is very similar to any kind of clinging because it's just clinging ultimately. The actual view is just free of clinging, and all other views are basically one form or another of clinging. But because it leads the right way, therefore there is a major difference between ordinary clinging to conventional reality and this kind of correct conceptual understanding of the ultimate.
Yes, and that's why it's even called nominal ultimate truth, even though it is actually in the realm of conventional, but because it's leading, it's stepping stoning to the actual absolute. Yeah, that's why it's called ultimate, but here on the right side, it is still in the realm of conventional reality. So that's a tricky one. Next one, also a little bit tricky. like what Bhumi Bodhisattvas perceive still because of their tendencies in post-meditation. The official answer is neither. It's neither conventional truth nor ultimate, just saying. But this is like, anyway, we are counting rich people's money, I guess, because we are not there yet. The valid conventional truth, yes, that is definitely conventional truth. You know, like seeing the real moon in the sky, or the Mount Everest as white. But then if we see the Mount Everest as yellow, that is again neither. It's neither relative or ultimate, because it is non-existent thing. There is no yellow snow mountain in that case. Anyway, the main thing is also what,
why is the mere conventional truth neither?
because it's not, we come to that. Okay, wait, let me just finish this for half a minute. So the main message I wanted to give here is, yeah, we have all these different levels of reality. And yeah, really what Christian also just mentioned, the important thing is to distinguish our intellectual understanding of ultimate truth. Let's say, I know there is a fire on the other side of the hill. It is correct, but it's not the real deal yet. But then walking there, meaning like realizing emptiness, and then standing next to the fire or in the fire or being inseparable from the fire, that is the actual ultimate. Okay, and yeah, to B's question, yeah, why in the post-meditation it is neither conventional nor ultimate, because yeah, that is how to say it. For the Bodhisattva, for the Bhumi Bodhisattvas, when they're getting out of meditation, then because of the latent tendencies, they still have these appearances, but because, yeah, they're appearing, one could think that it's conventional, but then on the other hand, they have this constant awareness that is sort of leaking out of the meditative equipoise that they have just been in. So therefore, because they are so aware that that they are not solidifying, reifying it, therefore it is not even called relative truth, because it's not something they get entangled in. And yeah, they just have so much, a much more lighter touch with that kind of reality than what ordinary beings have with valid conventional truth.
Just to be clear, when you say ultimate truth, you are referring to the union of emptiness and appearance. That's what the Arya Bodhisattva is seeing in meditative equipoise. The emptiness, union with appearance.
Theoretically, you're right, yes. But in this presentation, yeah, the actual ultimate is more like the actual emptiness, you know?
Of course, everything we are doing here is not the actual ultimate because we are talking.
Yes.
We don't, yeah, neither you or I do not have the ability to just communicate to you in my mind without words. So everything we are doing here is just an approximate. So
Yes.
in that approximate, an Arya Bodhisattva in meditative equipoise realizing ultimate truth is what they are seeing emptiness with the union of appearance, or seeing appearance, also seeing is emptiness.
In meditative equipoise, I think they don't, these tendencies that create appearances is not happening in their meditative equipoise. So they're in that ultimate, of course, without elaborations. But then in post-meditation, then their tendencies come up and then appearances come up.
So now the appearances is appearing with a kind of true existence, true inherent existence. But the Arya Bodhisattva know that that's not true.
No, for them, it's not appearing as true existence. It's just appearing like in a lucid dream. You know, it's just an appearance. There's no reality to it.
Okay, so in meditative equipoise, there's no appearance whatsoever. But in post-meditative equipoise, there's just mere appearance.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
I see a question there by Parodas.
You want to read it out loud?
Yeah, I'm going to summarize it. That basically it sounds like a trap as long as we conceptualize emptiness. It's still conceptual, so it's not the real deal. But we cannot actually have the experience. We cannot actually know what the real deal is until we know what the real deal is. Until we have the experience. He says, I feel like until we understand that we cannot understand it, we cannot understand it. Which is a lovely way to put it. I think there's two, many approaches to this whole thing. In the Paramitayana approach as in the Heart Sutra, for example, there is no way around this, actually, in the sense of we have to go through the conceptual mind to understand it, and then gradually develop the right view, which becomes more refined until the mind reaches a point where there is no options to hold on to anything anymore. So it's like looking at the cloud from far away, but then when you fly through it in the sky, you actually have the experience that there's nothing solid there. That's probably a very poor analogy, but there's a nice analogy actually. That's by Rongten, Sakya master, in one of his writings on Madhyamaka. He explains it like a turtle. When you put the turtle or tortoise, which one is the one that swims in the ocean?
One of them.
Turtle.
Okay, let's say turtle. The turtle is the one with the feet, okay, not the one that's swimming, the one with the cute feet. And so, of course, turtles don't have these fingers, right? They're like this. So he calls it, they have clumsy feet. So when you put the turtle in a round basin maybe with water or even without water, you just put the turtle there. At the beginning, it will try to kind of, grasp something, but it cannot because it doesn't have any fingers. So it just does this. In the end, it kind of understands there's nothing for me to hold on to get out of that basin. But then it just relaxes and it just stays there with its cute feet, just maybe in the air or to the side. And because there's nothing to hold on to anymore.
That's a tortoise.
That's the tortoise. Okay. So the tortoise, that's the analogy. And in the same way, and that's the Paramitayana approach, the perfection vehicle approach, is that we have to use analysis. There is no way around it. The Vajrayana has other methods. It has empowerment. It has the two stages of the path. But in Paramitayana, there is no way but using analysis or using that which is making all of these experiences and which is thinking right now, and go deep into comparing how do things appear, and when I look at them deeply, where are they? What are they really? And if there is something real, whether it's emptiness or whether it's phenomena, then I should be able to identify it and to conceptually hold on to it. But if there isn't, then the mind naturally, through these negations, learns to let go of different extremes. But it's a very, very, very slow process. This takes lifetimes upon lifetimes. That's why this Paramitayana approach takes, in the best case, 3 countless eons to complete, because it is a very slow process. And the analogy which Kongtrul Rinpoche gave is that of fire sticks, right? So you have one stick which is like clinging to things as real. That's one stick of fire, one wooden stick. And then you have one stick which is a correct understanding of emptiness. And then you rub these two together. You apply that view, that analysis again and again to that thing that you hold on to as being real. Mainly the 5 skandhas initially. And so you analyze, and until there's what they call this fire of emptiness, which is ignited. And that fire, that direct experience where there's no more holding on to anything, then consumes the very sticks that were used to produce the fire. So the view itself then dismantles the correct ultimate truth as well as the clinging to the to any kind of reality. That's an analogy that Kongtrul Rinpoche gave in his talk as well.
Yeah, and I wanted to say one more thing about concepts also, and then maybe we do our next thing. Yeah, usually it is said, yeah, in samsara we have like negative, destructive, or incorrect concepts, you know. Then the next step is to have like constructive, positive, whatever concepts. And then the next step is to go beyond all of them. So therefore, yeah, but this middle step is important also. It's like if I'm a very angry person, you know, then it's good to have this conventional loving compassion and patience and all of that. But then in the next step, I also have to go beyond both of them, you know. So here, yeah, it is important, I think, to acknowledge here that I have a lot of clinging to permanence or true existence. But then, thanks to studying contemplation, I have concepts of, yeah, things are impermanent and changing, in flux and everything, and things don't have true existence. And that already is correct, but yeah, it's still conceptual. So, and then to let go of that is then important. And of course, what Christian just said, these concepts then erode each other also, you know, and they are thinning each other out. And then what remains is this basic awareness, you know, that then shines through at some point.
And one thing that Kongtrul Rinpoche also mentioned in his talk is this need to alternate between analytical meditation and then resting meditation. And he said it Chegom Chogom, Chegom Chogom, Chegom Chogom, Chegom. So first you analyze until you reach a point where there is nothing to hold on to, and then you just rest in that state, which of course requires prior training in shamatha meditation. And then as soon as thoughts or whatever comes up, then again you analyze again. And there's one something I find quite inspiring. This is an analogy by a Thai master called Ajahn Chah from the Thai forest tradition. And he struggled a lot with his analytical meditation. He said it's so tiresome, always, you know, finding objects and analyzing. And then he said, no, actually, for him, he said, I should just be like a spider in the middle of the web. I just rest the mind. And whenever something comes up in the mind, it's like a fly being caught in the web. Then I go there and then I analyze that, whatever it is. I analyze it for its ultimate existence. And then when that is solved, then I just rest again. Then it's like the spider going back to the center of its web and just resting there. And then any thought comes, any sound comes, whatever it is, and just you go to whatever appears in the mind, analyze it until it resolves itself, and then go back to resting. Okay, shall I go on with the last segment? All right. Let me share this. Actually, we are already, I think, on over time. So if you please feel, nobody is offended if you're leaving. There is no problem at all.
Speak for yourself, Christian.
I just speak for you, Arne. I never speak for myself.
I will try.
Okay, so now I wanted to address a little bit this negation versus freedom from elaborations. And actually, these are after the teachings of Dzigar Kongtrul Rinpoche, I had the chance to listen to the whole thing. And so I took a few notes, and some of the aspects that I thought were, very helpful, I kind of, took note that it might be interesting to discuss in this tutorial. So that's why I took some of these out. And this is also part of those points, which he mentioned a few times. So negation versus freedom from elaboration. This negation is initially very, very, very important, and that's why it's mentioned so many times in the Heart Sutra, because that's the first and biggest obstacle that all beings have, is this clinging to things as real. So this kind of clinging has to be negated first. And there's many different approaches to that, which are represented in the different schools. And they are all, and this is very important, I think, to mention, they are all valid, and they're all like different medicines. So we cannot say that one medicine is better than another medicine, because medicines are manufactured to serve a certain problem, a certain disease. So in the same way, all these different masters, there seem to be a lot of conflict between, you know, Rangtong and Shentong and Geluk view and Mipam's view and so on and so forth. There are a lot of debates, and they're all wonderful and helpful for our understanding. But I think as followers of the Tibetan Dharma traditions, it's very important to acknowledge also the genius that all of these lineages and all of these masters actually have, and not to think, oh, this view is inferior, or this is the wrong view, and so on. They all have their place, and they all have their function. And this is so incredibly well represented in the collected writings of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, where he would have his commentary on the view of Tsongkhapa without criticizing it, with just, you know, highlighting how it works. And then after that, have the view of Dolpopa Sherab Gyaltsen, of the Shentong view. And they don't have there's room for all of these views. I think it's very important to respect all of these masters and all of these views, and to hold them in very high esteem, and to use their teachings to check our own views, the way we cling to things. And that's what we have to negate. We don't have to negate other people's opinions. We don't actually know what their actual opinions are. These are just writings that are written at a certain time for a certain purpose. Our problem is not other people's views. Our problem is our own views, our own attachment, and our own clinging. So we have to use these teachings and then check inwardly, what is my kind of disease here, and what is the method, what is the remedy I need to address it. And so the most common disease that all all ordinary beings have, is this clinging to things as real. And that's the first negation. So, and that's a very crucial negation. And first, as Arne just explained, first, it's a very conceptual work, a conceptual process. But it also has let's say it's not complete, it's limiting to just negate one aspect, because there's always the possibility for the mind then to hold on to, okay, things are not real. That's the reality. I cling to things as not real. And that's real. That's the ultimate reality. And to think that this is, to conceptually hold on to emptiness, in other words, thinking that this is the ultimate. So these have to be removed as well. So there's one analogy which I find really cool. Maybe you've heard of it. Probably you've heard of it. I'm just going to repeat it. Is this old man who lives with his son and with his daughter-in-law, and so his son has to go on a very long journey to do some work somewhere. So then his daughter-in-law stays there and takes care of the old man. And during this absence of his son, the man develops some kind of eye disease. And that eye disease is that when he looks at something, at the white background, he starts to see hair, like you see on this photo. So whenever he gets served rice every day, he always sees some hair on that rice. But he's too kind or too polite to say anything, so he just keeps eating the rice, and he thinks in his head that there's hair in the rice, but he doesn't dare to say anything. He doesn't want to hurt his daughter-in-law's feelings, so he keeps eating. But because he's always thinking of that, he develops some indigestion, and then he becomes quite sick, actually. until the point when his son returns from his trip, and then he says, listen, I have to talk to you. I think your wife tries to poison me. She puts hair in my rice every day, and I eat every day, and I have stomach aches, and there's a problem there. And so he lets, you know, he looks at the next meal that's being served, and the grandfather is like, look at the hair, and of course there's no hair there. So he says, but Daddy, there is no hair. I think there's something wrong with your eyes. We should go to check it out and have some eye doctor look at that. And then from that moment onward, all his what are these diseases called that you develop by what is it called?
Hypochondriacal or hypo?
No, this disease when you think you have a problem and then you develop it.
Psychosomatic.
Psychosomatic, yeah, that's it. Thank you. So all his psychosomatic diseases vanish from one day to the other. So in the perception of that old man, there is hair, right? But in reality, there was never, ever any hair to begin with. So the son, in order to remove his father's ignorance, he first had to create the concept of there being hair, although he never had the perception of hair to begin with. So he had to create, okay, and then he had to say, this hair that you think is real, there isn't any of that. But he never, in the son's mind, there was never any appearance or any clinging to hair because there was no hair to begin with. But skillfully, in order to help his dad, then he had the concept of hair that doesn't exist, but that he thinks is real, and then tell him what you think is real is not actually real. It doesn't exist. So this is a kind of negation that from the perspective of the Buddhas or the Bodhisattvas, there is no need to negate anything, right? Because there is nothing to actually cling to as real. However, because we do think things are real, they have to say, oh, what you think is real actually is not real. So they have to use these concepts and these skillful means to dismantle something where there is actually no basis. There is no actual real basis for this clinging to reality. So all of this, there is hair or there is no hair, is just a mental conceptual elaboration. From the perspective of somebody who doesn't have an eye disease, there is neither hair nor no hair. It doesn't hold. There's no point. But for somebody who clings to hair, then you first have to say, okay, there is no hair. Okay, but this is also a conceptual elaboration. And then the clinging to both, maybe the weird combination of there is hair, but at the same time there is no hair, is also just an imagination because there was no hair to begin with anyway. And also the idea of there is neither hair nor is there no hair is also just an idea that is formed in the mind. So all of these are here. I try to use AI to create some kind of visuals here. These are like different thoughts that we can create in our mind, like papers, and we hold on to them. As long as we hold on to any of these ideas, it is not, it's both, it's neither. As long as we cling to it, then the mind, or the hand in this case, is not free because it's holding on to something. But the moment the mind releases all of these ideas simultaneously, this is the moment when the mind can actually find rest and when there is peace. And so this is something that here, that's a quote from Bodhicharya Avatara, Shantideva's way of the Bodhisattva. When something and its non-existence both are absent from before the mind, no other option does the latter have. It comes to perfect rest, free from concepts free. And the important word here is both are absent from the mind, or if we talk about it in terms of the four extremes, all four are absent from the mind. So it's not just the negation of one aspect, neither is it of two nor of three, but all four are simultaneously negated or simultaneously absent from the mind. And this is the kind of state that we are kind of going for, basically. And in this path of the Paramita Jnana, the only way to reach that is through analytical meditation, to go step by step, first negating the first and then negating the other ones, and then alternating whenever the mind then finds this rest, when there's no clinging to either or, then just remaining in that. And then again, whenever there's a thought, like the spider or anything that appears, the spider analyzes that. When it dissolves, then rests in this state of not holding on to anything. And then again, repeat for 1 eon. So we have work to do, basically. Okay. Actually, I was lying before. This was the second last point I wanted to make. There's still one more, but maybe we break here for a second. Then we talk about the passage in Khyentse Wangpo's commentary about the practice of the Heart Sutra.
Yeah, also, or maybe soon conclude after you share what you wanted to share.
Yeah, okay. Any burning question? Or okay.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
So what is the relationship between recognizing and negating true existence or inherent existence and that of going beyond the 4 extremes? In terms of us talking about it, not in direct realization, because of course that's not what we are doing. In terms of us talking about it, thinking about it, what is the difference between the two? Or the similarity between the two?
The similarity is that both are conceptual elaborations. The difference is that the object of that elaboration is the opposite. One is existence and the other one is the non-existence. Like thinking this doesn't, or this form is not real, it doesn't have inherent existence. And clinging to that lack of inherent existence as real, that's the second problem, so to speak.
Okay, then to go beyond the 4 extremes, how is that? It would be more like shocking the mind.
Oh, definitely.
You know, in real life, there are situations in which we suddenly get shocked. And then the mind is kind of like, you know, maybe for a brief moment, quote unquote, no object.
Yeah, I think that's why Karl Brunelzel, he calls his book on the Heart Sutra the Heart Attack Sutra, for that very reason.
So if the mind has no object, it is not the same as identifying inherent existence and then negating it.
Of course not, no.
That mind that is in shock like that has no understanding of inherent existence as a concept. Because that mind has no understanding whatsoever. It's just
yes, but I think that's something that Khyentse Rinpoche often talks about, that there's a very important difference between a mind that is merely in shock. And sorry, now we talk really Paramita Jnana only, okay? So there's a big difference, a mind that is just blank in shock without maybe holding on to anything, like when you, I don't know, when you hear a loud sound like this, and going through the analysis and then finding rest without clinging as a result of the analysis. From the Paramita Jnana perspective, these two are very different. One will not lead to liberation, the other one will lead to liberation. So that's important to distinguish. Okay, let us conclude with sorry, I have to interrupt because I wanted to talk about this. I think it's quite hopefully inspiring. It is to me. So at the end of the commentary, Khyentse Wangpo then says, and I'm reading again from the text. So first he kind of summarizes again the view. I really encourage everyone to read the full commentary of Khyentse Wangpo. It's so beautiful and so, it's not very well translated, but it's really a beautiful text. And so towards the end, after he explains the whole sutra, then there's a section on the practice of the perfection of wisdom. Then he kind of summarizes how the perfection of wisdom is expressed through the three doors of liberation, of emptiness, lack of characteristics, and absence of aims, or signlessness and wishlessness. And then he talks about how we should practice when we read the text. And so he says, with that understanding of the three doors of liberation as being the meaning of the perfection of wisdom, then as a preparation, one infuses oneself with the elixir of bodhicitta. Then the main practice for those of superior faculties consists of reciting the text while resting in the state of ineffable, pristine wisdom, the natural state of emptiness as it really is. Those of middling faculties recite the text knowing all phenomena to be like magical illusions, and those of lesser acumen begin by recalling the meaning of emptiness and then focus their undistracted attention on the sound as they recite it. So, yeah, I think it speaks for itself, I think, here. Those of highest faculty, they can just recite it and stay in the view. Those of middling faculties, they while knowing that all things are just appearances without inherent nature, recite it. And the third is to first think of the meaning of emptiness, and then with that understanding in the back of our head, then read the text and just focus on the sound of the sutra. And then the practice of dedication then serves as the link between the main practice and the phase of post-meditation. For the practice to be complete, it must include these three excellences. And that's it. Oh, sorry, I didn't share. I was going to share this. I want to share. So just that I prepared a slide, so at least you can see it. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. I think because of time-wise reasons, we maybe start concluding with the third excellence, which is the excellent dedication. But first of all, yeah, thank you, everybody, for joining and being interactive. And thank you, Christian, for being here and having translated, I would say, very well, Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo's wonderful text. And yeah, and hopefully see you all soon in our next month's tutorial. Apparently, Christian has more words to share.
Yeah, I want to say I should correct myself because I also think it's a good translation, but I really have to say that Albion worked so much on this, so many hours. And also when we met recently in New Zealand, we were sitting together to correct. And then Dolma actually, she read the whole text many times and gave a lot of feedback, and Casey. And so I'm quite happy actually with the translation, I have to say.
Yes, yeah, this is like in Khyentse Vision Project, we have like such a long workflow for each text, you know. We actually thought once to maybe make a video, you know, how a text is handed from person to person around the globe, you know, until it is published on the website. Yeah, because it's always like 20 eyes or 40 eyes see more than 2 eyes. And yeah, there's always things to do. Okay, so again, thank you all. Let's dedicate. Because it's a Mahayana journey, and so many beings are suffering. So let's share everything good that came out of this session with everyone. So the first one is from this text, this commentary by Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, and the second one is a general dedication. To break free from the trap of the belief in a self and realize the perfection of wisdom beyond elaborations, may all beings swiftly come to directly know the reality of that which was so skillfully taught. By this merit, having attained omniscience and defeated the enemy of wrongdoing, may I free all beings from the ocean of existence with its tumultuous waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Okay, thanks again, everyone. Thanks again, Christian and Ina, who is doing the hosting here.
Thank you,
And
Arne.
thank you. And thank you, Dolma,
Yes,
for being the
and,
good mind behind all of that. And Dzigar Kongtrul Rinpoche and Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo.
Thank you.
if you want to receive the recording of this video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We also have Instagram. We also have Facebook. We're going to post the recording with all the links that were mentioned. So please make sure you're not missing anything, as well as the updates on our future text of the month, events, tutorials, all that. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
And
Thank
see
you,
you soon.
everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.